Hi everyone, and welcome back to our next session today at the Blockchain Community Day 2024. It's our fourth day, and our next topic within our today's technology day will be dedicated to the decision making when building Web 2.5 apps. And our today's guest is Artem Dubinin. I'd like to invite our today's guest, Artem. Hi, Artem. How are you?
Hey Alik, how are you doing? I'm doing great.
Yeah, great. Thanks. Thank you so much for joining, and thank you so much for applying such a great topic for for our conference. And I believe we can now see your presentation. And I would like to remind our audience to leave your questions wherever you are watching this video, and we will go through the questions at the end of today's session. And I think the floor is all yours, Artyom. Good luck to you.
Yeah, so my name is Artem and I'm a founder of Mighty Study. We're doing a Web3 gamified educational platform for incentivized learning. And I'm going to be talking about decision making when building Web 2.5 apps. And this talk is going to be useful for, first of all, founders and product managers, less so, but still useful for developers and analysts. And I've tried to make this talk as simple as possible, but it also can be useful for people who are of intermediate knowledge in blockchain. So for example, if someone doesn't know the business side of the story or doesn't know the tech side of the story, but knows the other one, this talk is going to be useful for you. And the main topic I want to discuss today is building apps with Web3 features and centralized trade-offs. And how do we realistically approach this? So the first thing, let's talk what is our plan for this talk. So at first, I'm going to talk about market overview and what is the market scope at today's market for blockchain. And then we're going to touch on what do we really need from blockchain and in which cases as a Web 2.5 app. And finally, we're going to outline the strategic combination of on-chain and off-chain elements for your next idea or for the project you are working on. And we are going to talk about the key decisions to be made when doing so. So let's start with basics. So you have a technology, and in this example, it's a combustion engine. And with a combustion engine, you can make a lot of great stuff, actually. Not only the ones pictured here. So like, for example, you can make a very fast car like a Ferrari, or you can use the same combustion engine to build a tank. And of course, the key considerations in both of those are going to be totally different, but the underlying technology is the same. So what we're going to discuss now is how to use blockchain in the right way to not end up with something like this. So of course, ending up with something like the car on the picture is pretty fun, but it's not obviously the optimal solution. And while you may be building this optimal solution, someone else will build the Ferrari and just go faster than you, basically. And here is the problem I see still in many of the blockchain projects is that they focus on glorifying white papers and tokens instead of focusing on the things that actually matter. And this is the problem, which is very old, actually. I remember Steve Jobs having a lot of arguments with tech people who were kind of focusing on creating fun stuff instead of solving the problem of their users. And these discussions are very, very relevant still today. But while Web 2 has matured already and everyone is already focusing on the right things, Web 3 is still pretty immature in that manner. So the first thing you have to ask yourself as a product manager or a founder is, what is the exact problem you're solving? And where does the blockchain fit in you solving that problem? And that would obviously depend on the industry sector. So let's look at the industry first. So as from the newbie eyes, the blockchain industry looks something like this. So like you have the overarching blockchain theme, and then you have a few different subcategories like layer 1s and 2s, you have DeFi, you have NFTs and gaming. But actually, how it looks like is more like this. So, and that would mean like you have something very serious, which is layer ones and twos. You have something semi-serious where decentralization matters a lot still, which is DeFi, and then you have something like NFTs in gaming, and that category, it kind of uses blockchain, but it's not really decentralized and not really that serious for that matter. Let's break the industry down into more parts to have a clearer vision of the whole industry scope. So right now, the industry have divided itself into many more sub-industries, and it's important to outline in which of these sub-industries decentralization is what really matters, or whether it's not really that important. So you can see I've created this scope where on the left you see that decentralization is more needed, and then on the right side, decentralization is less needed. So what we're going to focus on is this square on the right side. And this is the scope of Web 2.5 apps, and the talk is called Web 2.5 apps and decision making when building those. So we are going to focus on this exact scope. So yes, you might not need decentralization from blockchain, but what do we actually need then? Some people might ask. So what we actually need from blockchain in that cases, I'm not saying you don't need decentralization at all, but in some cases, you only need credible neutrality. And what that means is that the environment where everyone is equal and you can verifiably prove ownership. So, for example, I'm Artem, and then here is James, and here is Alice and Bob, and I know that Alex and Bob, they have certain things, and I can verify that they have certain things. And it is very important to mention that you can create this environment to be fully trustful, not trustless at all. And you don't need decentralization to make this. And from this credible neutrality, what we can get is we can get interoperability, we can get new revenue sharing models, new monetization models, and in general, like new ways to solve problems. And Web 2.5 is kind of a middle ground where we use blockchain for certain features while we are maintaining some centralization for better UX or for better user onboarding, or for and we are trying to keep the balance between the two. So here is an example of the problem that can be solved with blockchain without actually having to be decentralized. So this problem is API import-export hell, and it's solved by interoperability. Let's touch more on how do we solve that, and I'm going to show you the example of how we use that at Mighty. So at Mighty, we have an educational platform, and we educate users on Web3 and everything around tech in general. And our task when we build it Mighty is we wanted to make students feel more motivated during their learning. And this is the problem we were solving. And I said in the beginning of the talk, we have to focus on the problem. And the answer we found is that we want our learners to receive rewards provided by our course creators and brands that work with us. And to solve that problem, we do not actually need to be decentralized. We the only thing we have to solve to create this environment where students are more motivated during their learning is we need to scale the rewards. So we want to have a lot of different rewards for the users. And how do we achieve that? So, and let's imagine two cases, without blockchain and with blockchain. So without blockchain, what you have to do is you have to make each partner create an API for you because they have their own items which you want to connect to your platform. And it's a pretty tedious task. So you will make every person to make an API for you, which is a lot of hours. It's at least, let's say, 50 to 100 hours of development work. And then you have to spend 10 hours as a platform to connect to each one of those. And if you want to have, let's say, 3 reward providers, that's fine. You can connect to them like this. But if you want to have 100 reward providers, it's totally not feasible, because you would have to spend thousands and thousands of hours to connect to each one of those. And the question is like, why don't we write an API for everyone to use? That's not feasible too. Why? Because everyone wants to own their items, and everyone also wants to have other things to do with those items. So you kind of need a neutral ground for everyone to connect to, which is blockchain. And here we can see the way this problem is solved with blockchain. So we connect to blockchain in the middle. You have to, and you and your partners have to connect to blockchain once. And this is comparable time of development work, like 10 hours per blockchain, but you have to connect only once. And each one of your partners have to connect only once. And now you are inside this system where you place your things of value, and everyone can verifiably prove that each one of your partners have all of these good items that they can provide to you as rewards for learning, for students, for example. So blockchain just, it doesn't give you any decentralization at all, because you are still centralized and your partners are still centralized, but you now have this way to connect to each other in a verifiable manner. You don't have to trust your partners. Your partners don't have to trust you. And it just makes life easier for everyone, basically. This is only one of the problems we can solve with blockchains. But let's go further. So let's assume we have decided that we need blockchain in some fashion. How exactly do we implement blockchain in the most efficient way to solve your business goals? How do we end up with a Ferrari and not this funny car? Yeah. So in many cases, full Web3 way or a full Web2 way, currently at this moment, I'm not saying that it won't be this, it will be the same in the future, but in this at this current moment, full Web3 way or full Web2 way are in most cases least efficient ones. So you have this easy diagram here where you have you and your goal in front of you, and you can go Web2 way or you can go Web3 way. And the Web 2.0 way is you have a lot of paperwork, compliance, and you are kind of behaving like a usual internet business in a way. You're scaling your bottlenecks, you're hiring your team members, etc., etc. But the Web3 way is going to be very different, and it has its own hurdles. So you have decentralized governance, you have to establish distributed networking, you have to create peer-to-peer systems for your community to interact with each other, you need to implement tokens and governance models, which is very, very hard on its own. And sometimes combining these two things is the best way forward. So Web 2.5 is kind of a balancing act, where you balance advantages provided by centralized services and advantages provided by blockchain. So with the centralized services, you have increased speed, costs, and you have a very worked out user experience. But with blockchain, you have interoperability, which I've mentioned just now. You have the possibility of creating new revenue share and new peer-to-peer models. And you also have a regulatory hedge, because you don't have to, if you make some parts of your system decentralized, there is no entity controlling those, and it's a totally different regulatory talk, basically, overall. So what Web 2.5 gives us is a strategic combination of on-chain and off-chain elements. So where you have Web 2 and Web 3, and you combine it into Web 2.5. So, and what I'm trying to push here is that you have to push for Web3 features, not Web3 products. And that's very important, because a lot of people, there is a lot of talk about Web3 products, but not that much talk at all about integrating Web3 features into Web2 products. So the questions you have to ask here is, which part of your application benefits the most from decentralization? how can blockchain enhance your user experience and security, or can it actually decrease it in some cases? And last but not least, what are the most critical trade-offs for your business? What is the thing that you are not willing to negotiate upon, and what are the parts that you can actually settle in? Again, given the example of Mighty, what we have decided to do for our system is we have three parts here outlined. So we wanted to create a system which provides rewards to our learners. And in some, we start off with a fully centralized learning management system, which we have created on Mighty. And in this case, it's not feasible to use distributed systems because to do that, you would have to do the whole peer-to-peer verification of students checking each other to make it fully decentralized. So we have a server that checks all the answers from students, basically, and it's fully centralized, but it's not the part, it's not the problem we are solving. We do not need to be decentralized in this case. And on the other end, on the right side, you have a fully decentralized rewards, which we upload to blockchain. So once they arrive to the wallet of the user, it's full Web3 experience. They're in your wallet as NFTs or as any kind of other digital collectibles. And it is totally feasible to use blockchain in that regard. And there is a middle point where people can decide to be decentralized or centralized, which is the point system itself. So we've decided to make points non-transferable, so you cannot transfer them. And it might be feasible to use some kind of a layer-free blockchain on it, but you don't have to. So you can start centralized because it's much cheaper to build that way, and you can migrate to be decentralized later. And here you have to consider what are the best UX and UI and what are the costs of doing so. So again, we have, in the next section, I want to talk about what questions can you ask yourself as a founder or as a product manager or developer. What are the trade-offs and considerations you have to consider before building the product like this? And I want to start with trust and transparency, and we will have a lot of different topics like that in later slides. So and I want to outline Web 2 way and Web 3 way, and then come off to some form of middle ground. And just to outline before, there is no one-size-fits-all solution at all here. What I want to do here is I want you to ask those questions and apply them to your own specific case. And in Web 2, in trust and transparency, you have high trust. And in Web 2, you have secrecy as a competitive edge, and you have closed source benefits. So in Web 2, you really are tight with your secrets, and you want to go to market as fast as possible to leverage those. In Web 3, on the other manner, you have a lot more open source projects, and you have much higher transparency. But you don't have to follow one or the other. What you have to do is you have to ask yourself some questions. And the questions are, do I want to open up my secrets to gain market share because of great publicity? Or do I want to keep my secrets secret until the end to leverage them at the right time? And how do I control my transparency? So how do I keep my secrets and appeal to my potential auditory at the same time? So this is the questions I want people to ask themselves. On the other topic of market entry and onboarding, in Web 2, you have very broad appeal markets. Everyone, pretty much virtually everyone, has already onboarded onto our usual internet. And Web 3 has a very niche markets compared to that. But with Web 2, you have Web 2, you have much shorter lifetime value of the customer. To put it simply, customers are not that loyal in Web 2 compared to Web 3. And in Web 3, you have a much longer lifetime value of your usual customer. So also in Web 2, you have to have MVP or a product. In Web3, you do not have to build out the whole product, because market entry before the product is totally possible. And we've seen a lot of cases where people create a community, create their loyal followers without actually entering the market with a product, which is which sounds kind of crazy for a Web2 person, but it is what it is. Also, in Web2, you have much more simplified onboarding, and like everyone has a Google login nowadays. So if you want to, for example, log in people with Google, you can do that in Web2, and then you can like just press a few social logins, and then you cover 90% of the user base straight up. In Web3, it's a bit more complex. You have to teach people how to, if you want to onboard them from Web2, you have to teach them how to use MetaMask, how to use or other Web3 wallets. And the question you should ask here is, do I want to keep deep market penetration with extremely loyal fans and longer lifetime value of the customer, or do I want to have a maximum amount of users possible? And let's go to the next one. So the next consideration is ownership, value capture, and monetization. So in Web2, you as a platform, you own, you can say you kind of own your users. So you control data, you control revenue models, you are very cost effective short term, but again, as I said before, you have short term lifetime customer value. And in Web3, you have full user ownership, and in totally full Web3 manner. And you have user-driven monetization, and you make users part of your team, so to say. And then it brings you higher costs short term because it's more expensive to build such systems, but it gives you longer lifetime value of the customer. So the question you should ask here is, do I monetize by providing earning or other incentives for your users, or do I capture potential revenue streams? And you don't have to choose between one or another. You can leverage them both in some combination, and this is where 2.5 comes about. So in in terms of development, in Web2, virtually every developer knows how to code in JavaScript and like just the typical tech stack. So it brings you cheaper devs because it's closed source. It's easier to make mistakes. To put it simply, if you do not have access to specialized blockchain talent, it's easier to close source your code, to have less vulnerability area, and like to basically not to embarrass yourself if you don't have specialized skills in your team. In Web3, your team has to be very aligned with blockchain development, which is much harder. Your skill set, which is required from devs, is much higher. But at the same time, it's actually beneficial for publicity and reputations. So, for example, you can be a part of hackathons. You can show your expertise in this field, and ultimately it's easier to get funded or get grants from certain foundations. So the question you should ask here is, do I have access to specialized blockchain talent, or can I get it somewhere? Or do I don't have not enough access to it, or do I not have enough funding to it, and I just can leverage general development skills? The next one is regulatory environment. In Web2, it's top-down compliance. So it's suitable if your business doesn't require heavy licensing. So if you don't have to do too much paperwork, this is the way to go. With Web3, especially with all of those AML transmitter licenses and so on, Web3 way is more suitable for heavily regulated industries. And that's why, for example, in most cases in DeFi, you would need to decentralize up to the max, basically. So, and the question here that you should ask is, what will be more scalable? So dealing with bureaucracy or setting up your decentralized governance and other decentralized systems. And it will depend on your business. So is it faster to organize an effective DAO, or is it faster to fill out hundreds of papers? So And one more, risk and reward management. In Web 2, you kind of have more concentrated risk, because you as a founder, when you start a business, the risk is all yours. Of course, you can raise money from VCs, but that's going to be totally different story. So you have equity, you have centralized risks, and you have more monetary risks. In Web3, you can make a token if you have a use case for that, and then the risks that you have are transfers to users. But the risk that you have personally is the reputational one. So if you have implemented token in incorrect way, or if you have done something wrong with the token, or you don't have a real use case for the token, and the price goes down, let's say, your reputation will be damaged. And we have seen at this point, I think, thousands of projects which have gone down because of it. And do I want, like the questions here you should ask here is, do I want myself or team to have a large skin in the game, which is very important. Skin in the game is very important. It's very important to be deeply involved in what you do. Or do I need general users to be deeply involved? And you can have both, actually, and in Web 2.5. In terms of innovation, in Web 2, most of the innovation is internally driven. So it's a top-down approach. And in Web 3, it's community-driven. And community feedback loops are of a much larger importance. So the questions you should ask here is, do users really know what they want, or do you know better? So like some people would say, like, you have to theorize on your hypothesis, you have to test with real data, which is true. You have to do that. But if you're creating something that's very hard to test, let's say in the beginning, you can test some parts of it, but you, someone like Steve Jobs would say that he knew how the users will be much more approachable towards iPhone, for example, and he wouldn't need to test it that much. So do you have to, so the second question is, do you have to test the hypothesis, or there is some data that makes you think that like you are ready with your product? And which way is better to build iteration loops? All right, so I've outlined all of those considerations into the table. If you can screenshot it if you want. Also, if you want, you can text me later and ask something about those. Would love to answer your questions. And that's it for me today. I want to say that Web 2.5, in conclusion, is approaching the market from the most realistic perspective possible today. Yeah, thank you. Happy building.
All right. Yeah. Thank you so much, Artem, for such a great presentation and the way you present. And it was pretty understandable. And we have actually a couple of questions from Konstantin in the live chat. Let me read them aloud. The first question says, what other aspects of education do you think it will make sense to decentralize in the future?
All right. Yeah. So when we actually wanted to build Mighty, we have considered to create a fully decentralized, like peer-to-peer system. Like, of course, like that thought didn't last very long, but there was a thought like that for sure. I think. Let me read. There is a good fresh. Okay. Yes. So like the problem with decentralized governance is that some of the models that we see right now, they're clearly not working. So the participation into decentralized DAOs is very low. There is a lot of prevalence of playing the system. With fully decentralized system, you will have inevitably a lot of bots. And but I think it's possible to structure this in some way. But you have to consider your problem first. So if you really want to optimize for the solving of your problem, if your problem that you're solving is like, let's say, like dishonest teachers or something, you don't have to solve that problem in a decentralized manner again fully, because you can create like a trustful network of teachers that are going to be creating their own courses, for example, and they will be then you can structure incentives in a way that will make them honest. For example, it doesn't have to be decentralized, but I can see some of level decentralization to be useful here, certainly. And we will definitely have a lot better and more viable decentralized models in the future. I'm not preaching full centralization here. I'm just saying that you need to be realistic at this current moment in time, and you need to consider your battles carefully. Yeah.
Okay, and the next question, I think we can be pretty quick on it since we are exceeding the timing, and we should start the next session for today. So the next question says, is there good potential there for a full-fledged Web3 approach, and what could be the models of teacher-learner collaboration?
Oh, yeah. So I kind of answered this in a previous question, but I would say like what we do right now in Mighty is we allow everyone to, as a teacher, to come in and create their own courses, assign their own rewards. And I think that some parts of it will have to stay centralized. And like we've seen some of the models where people basically try to gamify the full Web3 model to just earn money. And this is very bad, because once you have money incentives, everything just kind of screws up in some of the way, in multiple ways. You don't have intrinsic motivation, you have extrinsic, and this is quite bad for the overall system. And I think we can sort of figure out a hybrid model where, as a founder of Farcraft has said, sufficiently decentralized model for collaborations like that. And I think we'll see it in the future. Yeah.
Okay, yeah, I think it's a good conclusion for today. I really liked your approach about being so realistic about decentralization and about providing solutions, since we live in a world which is full of information bubbles, different types of information overdoses, and lots of hypes, things happening all at once. And we really need to calm down sometimes and look at it, at everything pretty realistically. I think that's it for now. If there will be some questions after we publish the recording of this video, I will let you know. Thank you so much for coming. That was a pleasure to have you on our stage. We are always open to you. Let me know if you'll be interested in conducting some future events with us. Thank you so much, Artem.
Thank you, Alik. Thank you, everyone, also. All right. Bye-bye.
Yeah, bye-bye, Artem. And at this point, I'd like to announce that we will be having a workshop after this together with our guest, Andrei Silvio Dragnea. And please stay tuned. I'll be back in 15 seconds.